Hello, good evening, folks. You're welcome to another edition of Just Banter. First things first, we'd like to apologize for the very late start due to some technical problems that were beyond our control. When it comes to technology, all sorts of things are possible, all sorts of things, happen. Some things, when they say beyond your control, trust me, they're beyond your control. I have been in technology for several years, and I do know that you do come across some of these issues off and on. Now, apologies over. A lot has been happening in recent times, and we don't even know where to start, especially when it comes to the Nigerian state. We seem to talk about the Nigerian state a lot, and usually when we talk about the Nigerian state, most of what we talk about are things that truly touch us. Very few things have been happening in recent times that have touched us and have touched us in a positive way. So many of it has been negative. Now, I'm not sure, what most Nigerians would have been going through during the week, especially with a lot of things that have been happening in the past week. Tonight, we're going to be discussing an issue that has been raging like an inferno at the moment, and that is the issue of Pantami, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, and the allegations of extremist sympathies against him with two familiar faces when it comes to social activism. So that's Hundeyin and Jawad Iginla. But before we begin, let's take a quick look at this video by Aisha Yusufu.
The presidency is not Garba Shehu. The presidency is not even Muhammad Buhari. The presidency is an institution, and that institution must not be seen in any way whatsoever supporting someone who has been seen, who is now known to have been a terrorist sympathizer. We cannot be a nation that allows people who support terrorism to be out there in our public domain as public servants. We cannot have a minister of a sector that is so sensitive as per our information. Everything under that sector be someone who is a terrorist sympathizer, whether has been or still is, or whether he repented or not repented. That is not the issue. The issue is that our presidency, which is an institution, must not be seen in any way supporting and conniving with a terrorist sympathizer. You cannot.
A lot of passion there, understandably. A lot of Nigerians have, come out. Twitter has been exploding since the expose came out. David Hundeyin, one of our guests tonight, has been actively involved. He was one of the main actors when it comes to a lot of the articles that came out, a lot of the material that came out, because David is an investigative journalist, one of the very few that we have left in Nigeria. Now, there are a lot of passions because a lot has happened in just 1 week when you talk of Nigeria, especially when you talk of the security issues in Nigeria. Now, 6 people were killed in Ekiti on April 20th. 40 students were kidnapped at Greenfield University, Kaduna on April 21st. 18 people were kidnapped in Oyo on April 22nd. 45 people were killed in Zamfara on April 22nd. 83 people killed in Zamfara on April 23rd. Then, 3 students amongst the ones that were kidnapped from Greenfield University, Kaduna on April 24th were found dead. They were shot dead by the kidnappers. That's a lot to happen in a nation in just 1 week. Now, we're still waiting for David Hundeyin to join us. He's also, been trying to tackle some of the technical problems that he's been experiencing. We don't know if it's a case of this is part of the ploy to not let us go online and discuss this issue, but we think it's almost impossible to get that done. We will go online and we will still speak. We will speak truth to power as much as we can. But whilst we're waiting for David, we'll be introducing into the studio Jawad Iginla. Jawad is a regular contributor to farmerradio.com. Jawad is an author, he's a historian, and he's a social activist. Jawad has written quite a lot of pieces, especially on the issue of Nigeria, its history, and some of the social economic issues that plague the country. Hello, Jawad. How are you today?
Nice. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Fine, thank you.
Jawad, this is an unbelievably tense period in Nigeria's history. This is the first time that Nigerians will find themselves in this position where a senior member of the federal cabinet would actually be seen to have a direct correlation with something that is troubling Nigerians on a day-to-day basis. The northeast of Nigeria has been unsettled for quite a long time. And practically everybody I know, has had a bitter experience, either directly, indirectly, or directly, indirectly, when it comes to the issue of terrorist activities in Nigeria. So for Nigerians to hear that, or there are allegations that a senior member of the cabinet has some extremist leanings, whether presently or previously, it becomes a deeply worrying situation for most people. Now, I don't know, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the amount of passion that is being, expressed by Nigerians generally over the issue of Issa Pantami?
Okay. Good evening. We have to first and foremost understand what it is the country is about. The country has, give or take, roughly about 280 tongues, languages, if you may. And to be seen to have divergent views is part and parcel of nation building. But when somebody in a pride of place, like the Minister of Communications, then comes or is known to have history of undermining what it is that is the Nigerian unity, then what you then have is a situation whereby mistrust breeds amongst everybody else. Like, who else has this kind of views? Who is made worse by the fact that there is a raging problem in the northeast of Nigeria. Part and parcel of that is what these views of the minister, or past views, as it may, alludes to. So the question then is, what was he thinking when he said it? Does he still hold the same thoughts? If he doesn't hold the same thoughts, does he condemn those who hold such thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
And then what is even more pertinent for me is, are we speaking of incompetence in terms of the security arm of the country? In the sense that this guy must have been vetted to hold such a sensitive position. Or are we saying we no longer vet?
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, the situation breeds more questions than answers. So just like you and I and millions of other Nigerians is, the question is, what is going on? There was a statement in the course of the week where, which we attribute to Garba Shehu, which said the statements were in the past, and what has been, he understands that those statements were ill-advised and what have you. But what about him? Why doesn't he come out and make a statement to say, I denounce everybody that holds such views. These views are no longer mine. And maybe in the course of the heat of passion, I must have misspoken. But no, because he's not denounced those views yet.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we to believe? Are we to believe the state is now actually sponsoring a terrorist in the cabinet? You know?
So the initial question, that was being asked was, if he has made those statements previously, and he's now denouncing those statements, can any element of sincerity be attached to that? Considering the fact that this is not something that he came out to admit publicly before he was sworn into any government position. It was simply a case of this came out as an expose, and then it was, exposed that he had done this before. Which brings, to the fore the question of his sincerity. Now, he himself has not been noted to have come out to speak on the matter so far, except maybe for a press release of some sort somewhere along the line. But he has not actually come out to speak on the matter himself personally.
Okay.
He was supposed to have featured on a show on Channels Television, where the investigative reporter, David Hundeyin, who's supposed to be one of our guests tonight, where David was on, and David was the one that came up with quite a lot of the materials, that featured him, from his time as a preacher at the mosque when he was in ATV Ubauchi, and some of the comments he made after that as well. But instead of him appearing himself, he sent someone to go and defend him there. And the person was supposed to be defending him from a position of a religious leader who had some form of insight into his personal life and his professional life as well.
Okay.
So probably the person was supposed to be able to speak on his behalf from the point of view of, look, I know this man, so I can vouch for him. But the minister seems to have forgotten that it's Nigerians that need to be able to vouch for him.
For you,
correct?
Correct.
Not one particular individual.
Yep.
You understand what I'm saying? So it still brings, back some of the questions we have asked, before severally, especially when you remember the issue of Femi Fani-Kayode and how he went at a reporter who was asking him a question, and he was filled with indignation.
He got hot-colored.
You understand what I'm saying? So it still goes back to that thing that we say, where the Nigerian politicians feel that the people are there to serve them and, not the other way around. So we still don't understand why, for any reason whatsoever, somebody as young as Issa Pantami, because I will say he's young, he's just 50 or just going to be 50, something like that. So he's supposed to be part of the new guard of politicians. He's highly educated, and he's supposed to be a bit more savvy by now, having been in government for a little while, since he was NITDA, he led NITDA for a while before he became a minister. So you would have expected that he would have been a bit more politically savvy in dealing with, the Nigerian populace, especially at such a sensitive time.
True.
But he did not come out to say anything himself. It could be for any number of reasons. When you look at it, it could be a case of damned if you do or damned if you don't.
Yeah, but it will still have set a precedent in the sense that what's the lady, the finance minister, previous finance minister, Kemi Adeosun, when she got burnt with the idea that her NYC certificates were forged, and she had to resign. First in Nigeria, I think that would be the first time a Nigerian minister actually resigned on principle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as if most of them don't have a reason to do so, but kudos to her, she was the first to do it on principle. Now, I'm not saying he should have resigned. He should have actually been sacked.
Okay.
And the reason I say this is it doesn't bode well for the guys on the front, the military guys on the front.
Yeah.
That you are supposed to be fighting an enemy, a sworn enemy, who spouses the same rhetoric as this guy. But kudos to him. He did say something. I think he said it in 2003, which was he doesn't support Al-Qaeda. He doesn't support Boko Haram, but he does support Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Now, the thing is, in the eyes of the world, there is no clear distinction in what they stand for. They actually espouse the same thing, which is
a lot of hate.
Exactly. We'll kill anybody that's in our path, regardless of who you are. Because, to be fair, in the northeast of Nigeria, or in the northern part of Nigeria, the majority of the people that have borne the brunt of that savagery are actually Muslims. You know,
which a lot of people don't seem to know or understand.
Exactly. So the question is he now advocating for the fact that it's okay to kill Muslims? Because he says he's not for this, he's for that. But then you can't do the thing is, when you go out on a raid, on a campaign, you're not going to be discriminating, because it's a scattergun approach, isn't it? You go in, you do whatever it is you need to do. There is no way of telling who is who. So for me, as a matter of principle, he should not actually be there. He should not actually be there. It's not for the president to forgive or to oversee, to overlook whatever it is. It's for the president to understand the passion, the fervor of Nigerians, to understand the pain. Because we keep burying military officers. I mean, I think 2 weeks ago, they buried about 59 in Makurdi. So if you have that going on, and you have a gentleman here sat here holding views that to which these guys are facing every day, there's kidnappings going on. And how did the kidnappings came about? The idea that impunity has become the order of the day. Kids are being kidnapped. You can't travel by the road between Abuja and Kaduna without a military escort. I mean, it shows that we don't take security seriously. And here we have somebody who has, espoused the idea that it's okay to go out and kill with impunity.
Yeah.
What will be right and proper for the government, in tune with its people, is to stand by them and say, listen, we can't have this. You need to leave. And that's it. End of matter. Not come out and give him an advertorial to say, oh, he's this, he's that. No. Completely not. Completely not.
The what has been shocking, as far as I have seen, is the fact that the federal government spokesman comes out to speak on his behalf. Why would the federal government spokesman come out to speak on behalf of a minister?
That is tacit approval.
You understand what I'm saying? Now, for those of you watching the show, we have an opinion poll. It's in the comment section when it comes to the Facebook. You can click on it and let's sample your opinions. What do you think based on what is happening with Pantami? Do you think he should stay in office, or do you think he should resign? Is it just a yes or no poll? So all you have to do is just click on it and click on yes or no, and we'll put it up on the screen for the viewers to see immediately after the conversation, so that we can all be on the same page, and let us sample whatever it is that the thoughts are. But don't forget that you can also join us by either making comments in the comment section, or you can call us. We'll put the number on the screen to run in the ticker below. You can call in anonymously, and we'll be able to plug you in, and then you can express your views as well. Even though we will be censoring if there any undue venom in any of the calls, when they do come. So sorry about that, Jawad. So why would Garba Shehu be the one to be responding on behalf of the Minister of Communications? Is it that the Minister of Communications has now suddenly lost the ability to communicate?
lost his
Has he lost
voice.
the ability? Has he lost the ability to communicate?
Mm-hmm.
Or how do we express that?
I mean, in any ministry, there's they've got publicity sides. So more so with communications, you will have a PR side. And if you cannot do it, have like a PR agency come in and advise you. But still, there is nothing to advise you on here. There is no what's the word? There is no climb down from this position, in the sense that it is so egregious to the point where you're talking about the sanctity of human life. And even in the faith, it says if you go out of your way to kill one human being, it's as if you've killed the entire humanity.
Yeah.
So if that be the case, why would you hold the views? I mean, fine, the West are not exactly painted with roses. They have issues and what have you, from colonialism, racism, and what have you. But the idea of, you take up arms in such a way that, I mean, there are ways you can express your views. Social media is there, and has now become the order of the day that even governments have social media platforms to defend their views, because they know once a view starts trending, that's who's won the debate, and there is no coming back from that. So if you have that kind of position and you have that kind of weapon in your arsenal, the idea that you want to kill people with such impunity, and the statement was, we rejoice every time we see them being killed. Who rejoices at the death of another human being? That is callous.
A lot of the statements have been attributed to him.
Yeah.
Some have been defended by people with the lame excuse that it was in the past. Now, somebody that I know, whom I respect quite a lot, also came out and said, now, not to the general public, but to myself, he said, we are overheating the polity, by flogging this issue or discussing this issue at all. And I found it, pretty amazing that he would look at things from that point of view, especially considering the depth of how this issue affects Nigerians on a day-to-day basis. Now, do you build a house in sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria? Let me even say sub-Saharan, in Nigeria. Do you build a house in Nigeria and then not put burglary proofs, not put security gates, and say there used to be armed robbers in this area, they are not there anymore?
We are, as a body of people, we are welcoming, we're all embracing. In my family, we have a Christian side, we have a Muslim side, we have traditionalists.
Okay.
There was never a point in time where anybody says, oh, this person is this, and as a result, your life is worthless. No. Everybody lives their life, and even in the Quran it says that, to you your faith, to me my faith. Everybody carries on and do, so the idea that you will think whatever opinion you hold is so salient to the point where it has to dominate somebody else's is intolerant, and basically it's abhorrent. That's the way I'll say it. It's abhorrent. Now, back to the issue of setting a house up and not securing it. Nigeria has 170 million people. 170 million people.
Don't you have over 200 million?
I mean, let's conservatively put. In 2017, there was a CIA report done on Nigeria, and it puts the number at 170. So I'll go with that number for now.
Okay.
There's a reason I'm going with that number, and this is the key statistics there. In that number, 60% of that number are between the ages of 18 and 35.
Yeah.
Of that 18 to 35, 60% of that number in itself, of that 60%, is made up of women. If our women are not secure, how can you have a secure nation? If you have somebody who is espousing such views, I mean, you gave numbers earlier of people being killed, kids being kidnapped, what have you. How can a country thrive in an era of insecurity? And it's made worse by the fact that this gentleman sits on sensitive information about every Nigerian within that 60%. You have a problem in the north where, I mean, you and I schooled in the north, so we know what that problem is. You see the kids running around, no parents, no social welfare, basically living from hand to mouth. Those kids are a hotbed of trouble, if not now, in the future. And if their only means or ways of understanding the world is to listen to a preacher, such as this gentleman in the past, in the present, and going on into the future, we have a problem coming. We have a serious problem coming.
I was explaining something to somebody a few days ago. He's one of my partners in one of my ventures, and we are extremely close. He's a Christian, albeit he thinks twice before he talks about religion, just like myself. I'll just simplify it that way. Now, there's this catchphrase that's been bandied, or has been bandied for quite a while, where they say all terrorists are Muslims.
Yeah.
Simply because, according to him, to that my friend, I'm sure he's watching this as well. According to him, the Muslims don't speak up enough when things like this happen. So it always seems as if you are a passive supporter of this type of things happening. Now, in as much as I try to explain to him that when you look at the number of Muslims in the world, and you look at that misconception that Islam is supposed to be a violent religion, how come you still have non-Muslims living in the world, considering the massive population of Muslims? Muslim schools on a daily basis, if that was what their religion was propagating, could have been going on killing sprees on a day-to-day basis. But people forget that in the initial, even the word Islam basically means peace.
True.
When the average Muslim, when he first walks into an environment or he first meets people, the first thing he says is Assalamu alaikum, which is peace be upon you.
Yep.
So you're supposed to be propagating peace at every point in time as a Muslim. Now, it is also stated that if you want people to convert to your religion or to admire you for your religion, it should be seen from your attitude, not from what you say.
And conduct.
Do you understand? So I grew up as a Muslim, both sides of my family, were Muslims and all that, deep Muslims, serious Muslims and all of that, 2 chief imams and all of that. And both of them, well, I didn't meet one, but both of them, what they inculcated in their children, who also inculcated into us, was that there's no compulsion in religion.
True.
So you don't force people to believe in what you're thinking. So we need to now start speaking out, and we need to start speaking out positively against these types of issues. Now, that is the Muslim side of me speaking. I hardly ever speak, on religion. From a radio, religion is not something that we allow as a policy. We actually leave it out. But I was just mentioning that as a personal opinion. So back to the issue of Issa Pantami, the sensitive position he holds, and Nigerians' reaction. Don't Nigerians have a right, to ask questions about a man that is being paid from the taxes that they pay?
True.
Why should people think that it is insolent to ask for his resignation? Why should people think it is insolent for you to ask him to call himself to account? Why should people think that it is a digression from what is truly happening? We have heard of things like sleeper cells when it comes to the issue of terrorism. We have seen different things, that we have read about online, that we have seen on television. We have read as hard copy, material when it comes to the issue of terrorism. Things that we never knew about. Families, that have lived in a particular environment for 10, 15 years, and they were nice, gentle people and all of that. And then one day, the head of the family, who is one who has been directing the affairs of the family, gets up, straps a bomb around himself, and he goes off to go and kill people. He was never heard to have had extremist views. But for this, there's so much material that is out there. It's becoming a bit difficult, to even look the other way for any reason whatsoever. And yet, people feel that it is divisive to talk about the matter rather than being protective. People forget that we are what we protect.
True.
So we can't get up in the morning and ignore the fact that it is raining or it is sunny. There are consequences for everything that is being done. So it becomes a bit more difficult when you look at people who are supposed to be intellectuals speaking. And then you now wonder, how can you defend the indefensible? Now, there are several times that we have looked at the issue of the President Buhari, and it has seemed like he is indefensible. But at least there's still one or two things you can point to and say, okay, you know what, probably this guy has done this, probably he has done that. And then you can still try to make an argument. But a lot of the times you cannot make an argument to defend him simply because some of the things that he does
or not do
or does not do beleaguers the mind.
Yeah, exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So that is why when I look at the amount of venom that is being spewed on the internet, I don't blame anybody for having those views in the first place. Secondly, when you look at the numbers of Nigerians that are dying on a day-to-day basis, you have to ask yourself, did this just start overnight? It didn't just start overnight.
No.
So how do you know that it is not part of the preachings that he preached those several years ago that is having the impact that it is having today?
In 2004, cleric Mohammed Yusuf came back from Saudi Arabia and went on to start what is now known as Boko Haram. At the time, it was just
an offshoot of was it a successor organization to the Metatini?
Yes, of the 80s. And when he started, he said we were just here to propagate Islam. But fast forward 11 years later, we are where we are. People being killed, the Northeast being ravaged, and what have you. Now, which brings me back to the idea of when you said there are people being radicalized as we speak or prior with regards to his old statements. In 2015, there was a boy who left Yemen, came to Nigeria, boarded a plane bound for Detroit, strapped bombs into his pants. Do you remember the story? Abdul Muttalab.
Abdul Muttalab, yes.
Thank you very much. Abdul Muttalab claims affinity towards Al-Qaeda. And what was it Pantani said earlier? I don't like Boko Haram, but I love Taliban and Al-Qaeda. In fact, I consider Osama bin Laden to be a better Muslim than I am. You can add 2 and 2 together.
Let's take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at as one of the material that is out there, especially in relation to what you just said. And we'll be right back.
Okay.
Saboda kyautata zato zuwa ga jama'ar da suka buƙaci a yi tunatarwa akan wannan al'amari din. Babban abin da ya fara zuwa cikin tunani na zai iya yiwa na yi kuskuren tunani shine ‘yan uwa ahalus sunna da suka bukata shine mutanen Taliban da suka rayu a Afghanistan. Allah ya jarrabi ahalus sunna da dama a duniya da ƙaunarsu. Allah ya zayyana mutane da dama da ikon Allah mutunta su da musu fatan alkhairi saboda alamomin alkhairi da ake gani tare da su. Baya ga wannan kuma a wani janibi sai aka samu wasu jama'a daga cikin kafirai Western Wall ba su da target a duniya sai bata su a idan ƴan uwansu musulmai, hatta ma idan kafiran ta bangaren jingina musu abin da ba su aikata ba.
So the most disturbing, in my opinion, of everything that was said, for most people that you understand Hausa, the subtitles were there, and we'll put a link in the description again, so you could also access it and watch it again at your own time. There are several of it, but we decided not to put up so many of them. So this would not be a case of a targeted issue at Issa Pantami himself, but this is a case of dealing with the subject matter, which is not giving room to any form of terrorist sympathies at all in whichever environment we find ourselves, regardless of whatever religion, race, or whatever it is that we are. It is not something that should be acceptable under any guise. Now, he used the word infidels. Now, as far as I know, when they talk of infidels, back in the days, infidels were unbelievers. But according to the religion, the Christians and the Jews are believers, aren't they?
True. People of the book.
So where does the word infidel, where or how has it gained so much ground when it comes to extremist preaching? Ponder over that.
No, I mean
we'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after that. Hello, good evening, folks. If you're just joining us, you're welcome to another edition of Just Banter. Tonight, we are having a discussion on a matter that has been raging and turning the internet into a boxing ring in recent times, and that is the issue of Issa Pantami and the raging controversy over his terrorism, or should I say extremism sympathies, has been alleged. Several material is out there. speeches that he had given. Even a man who has made allegations that Isa Pantami was the preacher at the mosque in Amadu, at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, when his son, who also was a student of that college, was killed, and his body was found around the mosque as of that particular point in time. And the man claims that it is the extremist preachings of Isa Pantami, directly or indirectly, that was responsible for the loss of his son as of that point in time. This was several years ago when he was a preacher at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. I'm sorry, it's a bit disturbing, to remember or to think of things like that. So sometimes I will get a bit, incoherent when I talk about things like that. But so back to where we were. Now, you have seen that video. You have seen that particular word that he used, infidel. It shows a lot of intolerance, in my own opinion. I don't know. What do you think of that, Jawad?
Okay. In the book, the Quran, the Holy Quran, the Al-Kitab, it says the Christians and the Jews are the people of the book. So majority of the people in the world are of those people. So I think this is what we should understand. I think this is what we should understand. In the 70s, the Russians were in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is considered the graveyard of empires. Okay. And the West, at the time, you had this Western Bloc, Eastern Bloc geopolitics. So the idea then was to try and get the Russians out of Afghanistan. The Americans saw the Saudis and decided, oh, there's an affinity between you and the Taliban. Why don't you help us arm these guys? Because at the time, the Taliban were actually fighting back against the Russians, but they didn't have any backing. Yeah. So the backing came through Osama bin Laden, who saw iniquities in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia and decided, you know what, I can no longer deal with you guys. I'm going to support my friends over there. And then he went over to Afghanistan. And in so doing, he called Muslims from all over the Muslim world, from Tunisia, Egypt, and Nigeria, Morocco, anywhere Muslims were, they were hacking on to come to the aid of the Taliban. And they went. They fought what was called a jihad at the time. That was probably the first time the word jihad entered the lexicon of the Western media. Okay. But you and I know that jihad is not just a war. It actually means you as a person, as an individual, fighting your impure thoughts, trying to live a better way, trying to do well unto the world and what have you. But then, the media as it ways, once they capture onto a word, they spin it, and whatever happens, that word is dropped every now and then, and before you know it, becomes the raging torrent that it is now.
It's a buzzword.
Exactly. So the war against the Russians was won. And then what then happened? Most of these guys wanted to go back home. But here's the snag. In going back home, they've learned military techniques, what have you, yada, yada, yada. And the countries you're talking about were countries that the West was basically taking resources out of. So if these guys came into the fray, there was going to be problems. So what did they do? The they gave the home government the heads up. They said, okay, fine, you guys can come. But when those guys came back, they were taken and detained. Your Al-Zafrawi, your Osama bin Laden, he had to run to Sudan and what have you. Now, I'm just giving you a background political history as to the reason why people then think this war is an Islamic war. It's not actually an Islamic war. It is a political war. And you have to understand it for what it is. Yes, there are Muslims fighting it, but the undertone of the whole thing is politics. Is knowing your place in the world. Guys were tortured in Egypt. Guys were tortured in Tunisia at the time, in Algeria, in Morocco. Definitely Morocco. Because Morocco then became the go-to detention center. Once you're rendered, you were rendered to Morocco, they dealt with you and what have you. The only place they didn't go was Libya. And why didn't they go to Libya? Because in a way, they saw Libya as some sort of kindred spirit. Now, fast forward 2000 and I think it was 2012 when they started bombing Libya. These guys returned. Everybody went to Libya to go and fight the West. Now, what sort of war were they fighting? Were they fighting a war of Islam against the West, or they were fighting a political war? History lends itself to the fact that it was a political war. Now, fast forward, weapons. Weapons now get into, what's it called? Get into northern Nigeria, enters Chad, northern Nigeria, enters Mali, northern Mali. It's curious that all that corridor, there is wars raging. And the wars that are wars raging between local forces and foreign forces. It's only in Nigeria that the war is actually against
Nigerians.
Thank
By
you very
Nigerians.
So you
Now,
see,
a lot of people have asked, that what is the crime that Issa Pantami has committed?
First and foremost, Nigeria is considered a secular state. Let's begin from that premise. And if it's a secular state, it means there must be division between church and state. I'm using the Western church, meaning religion and politics. There must be a difference. Now, insofar as him himself, the crime is, I won't say crime. I will say, when you say crime, you're almost saying you're making him guilty even before he's been judged by a court of his peers. Yeah. Everything in the world of politics is all about perception. If I perceive you to be a liar, you're a liar. Maybe going forward, you might prove not to be one, but at that point in time, you're a liar. Now, how do we know Pantami? We can only judge Pantami by his past. Yeah? So they will say, if you showed me who you are, why would I trust you? He's already shown us that he has those leanings. So do I want him to suffer? No. Do I want him to lose his job? Maybe. And when I say maybe, I'm saying you don't necessarily have to lose your job, but you could resign in principle based on the fact that if you have, okay, I'll put this to him. If he has the love of Nigeria at heart, resign.
First things first.
Yeah, resign. That yes, I love this country enough to be able to put myself aside. to say, Nigeria, here you go. Have a fresh run. But the moment you keep sticking yourself in the mix, you're effectively saying, of 170 million, I go back to that number again, I'm the only one that can do this job. Nobody else.
Yes.
That in itself is a certain level of arrogance.
Okay.
So
now, for the people who have asked if he has committed a crime or not, committing a crime, like Jawad said, you have to be subjected to the courts of competent jurisdiction, and it is up to that court to actually state whether you are guilty of a crime or not. That being said, there are laws in every country. People have the right to go and seek out the truth. The Constitution is very clear. It is accessible to each and every person that wants to see it, that wants to read it. So I'll read a small part for you from the Terrorism Act Prevention, and it is an amendment to that act, and it is section 4, and it states so. It is a crime for any person who A, arranges, manages, assists in arranging or managing, participates in a meeting or an activity which in his knowledge is concerned or connected with an act of terrorism or a terrorist group. Collects or provides logistic, equipment, information, articles, or facilities for a meeting or an activity which in his knowledge is concerned or connected with an act of terrorism or terrorist group. C, attends a meeting which in his knowledge is to support a prescribed organization or to further the objectives of a prescribed organization.
Yeah.
Commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years. Now, that is the Terrorism Act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that was based under the amendments that are on that act. Now, I am by no means a lawyer. I have no legal inclination. It is information that is readily available for anybody who has the interest in knowing what their rights and their obligations are as a citizen of any country that they reside in. Now, all has been said, all has been done. Issa Pantami made so many statements that he himself could not deny at any point, or rather, much later he could no longer deny, because initially it was a case of it was not true. Now later he has come out to say he is sorry, he was much younger as of that time.
At 34.
Let's take the age out of consideration. You know, age is not a criteria for maturity. Neither is it a criteria for stupidity. But
Okay.
you know, but at the same time, at the same time. But that being said, if he has committed a crime several years ago, is he liable for that crime today? Whether in a court of law or past societal consequences.
Okay. In Sena climes, a bank robber is not allowed to work in any financial institution.
Okay.
A
repentant or not,
you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. You might have done the crime, done the time, but no, you won't be allowed back in that industry. The same thing happens for medical malpractice. If you've been struck off, you've been struck off. You lose your license to practice. Same thing happens in law. If you've been found to gotten involved in legal malpractice, you're not allowed to practice law. Now, has he been tried? No. Has he been found guilty? No. What are we talking about? We're talking about terrorism. What is the country under the yoke of at the moment? Terrorism. So what do? First and foremost, you safeguard the country, first and foremost, not the individual. Safeguard the country first. Yes, thank you for your service. We'll see you around. But no, you can't be holding public office, especially especially one that is so sensitive like that. You know, I mean, forget the sensitivity of the matter. Okay, I'll ask a question, a rhetorical question. So what happens if, say, the United Nations is holding a meeting of communication ministers in the United States and he gets detained at JFK? Whose embarrassment is that? Because yes, you might have diplomatic immunity in the sense that yes, you fly under the flag of the country. But then I think if you're considered to be a security risk, you won't be given flights. You'll be considered you'll be put on the on the no flight list. Now you land in the United States and you're arrested. Yes, we can ask for you back. They might deport you. But then that stain is on who? It's on us. Because it means we don't have our house in order. We don't have our house in order.
Now, we've been here for quite a bit. We've held our guests hostage for quite a while. Sorry for the cliche at this point in time, especially considering what the discussion is. But we are very grateful that they were able to take out the time to join us. So just a little, jocular banter somewhere there. Now, Isa Pantami has apologized to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. An apology, in my own personal opinion, is an admission of guilt. Now, whether he is subjected to any legal prosecution or whatever, I have no idea. That, is beyond my purview, even as an individual who has an opinion. But the one thing I will say is this. For a man as young as Isa Pantami, he should look into the mirror and tell himself the gospel truth, which is this. When you are confronted with such, an allegation over your past, something that borders on the welfare of an entire state, hundreds of millions of people, the honorable thing would have been to initially step aside. If you're truly serving the people, let the people call for you and say, come back. Well, as a matter of principle, you should first step aside. Now, to the unfortunate statements that were attributed to the federal government spokesman, Garo Rashe, where he was now making comparisons between Isa Pantami and Kemi Adeosun, I'm not sure a lot of people have words, to speak to Garo Rashe when you look at that, type of comparison. And of course, as usual, a lot of people will try to turn that particular, comparison into an us versus them issue. It is not an us versus them issue. It is a matter of principle. Now, in the event that you think that Kemi Adeosun probably did that simply because she was from Southwest Nigeria, she had education in the UK and all of that, that is absolutely not true. Because Salisu Buhari a young man who became the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Also did something similar. I love this.
When there was a falsification on his age declaration, he also stepped aside honorably. So it has nothing to do with where you're from, what your religious or tribal or ethnic orientation is. It is a matter of principle
and honor.
If Nigerians are asking or demanding that their leaders be accountable, those leaders should also be equally responsible towards the Nigerians who are asking for them to be accountable. We have blamed a lot of Nigerians for not being good followers, thereby, allowing for bad leadership to emerge. It is now time for people who have been asking for good followership to emerge, to now support these good followers who are asking that he should speak out, he should say something. Whether he steps aside or it's a case of he actually goes on television, he's the Minister of Communications. Every single person wants to listen to him in the country. So he should step out. He should say something. Nigerians all over the world in diaspora are actually looking at it and they are wondering what is going on. So everybody's asking questions. Non-Nigerians who have businesses, with Nigerians or in Nigeria also asking questions. So it's not just a national issue. It's now a global issue, considering the amount of interests that are involved, the amount of investments that are in the communications sector and the digital economy as well. Because the digital economy now has a very close symbiotic relationship with the finance sector. So a lot of questions are being asked globally about Issa Pantami and the federal government's reaction to the issue of the allegations against Issa Pantami. Jawad Iginla, I'd like to say a very big thank you for taking out the time. David Hundeyin, unfortunately, could not join us because of the technical issues. He could not resolve those technical issues. But I'm sure that at some point, because David has been on here before, he likes being a guest of ours here and having discussions with us. So I'm sure he will be back in the shortest possible time to take on this issue amongst others, because we also like having David on. Like I said, he's one of the few investigative journalists that are left in Nigeria. A lot of people don't want to do investigative journalism anymore because it is not exactly a safe
space
occupation to be in. So thank you very much, everyone. And Jawad, you have a great night. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you. So, interesting discussion. Unfortunately, we didn't have David on, so you could have heard a bit more from the horse's mouth, since he was one of the major players in terms of the investigations into Issa Pantami. So we'd like to say a big, big thank you to you all. And we promise Scout's honor, it's not going to happen again for us to be late. We have tons and tons and tons more content for you. As a matter of fact, we decided that we're going to be giving little nuggets for people as some sort of value add when it comes to enriching their pockets. So a lot of people are always looking for something on the side, some form of side hustle to do. Most people focus on what is popular, what is happening generally, and they try to latch on to that. They did not see that there are small areas where they could actually latch on to what is trending, and they could actually make quite a bit of money before anybody knows what is going on. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, everybody has been rushing and doing face masks, they have been doing hand washes, they've been doing disinfectants. Now, the one thing that a lot of people use on a day-to-day basis that most people are not looking at is bleach. You don't have to manufacture bleach yourself. If you actually just be an online reseller for a brand that manufactures bleach, look into it. There's a lot of money there. The market is wide open. People are using bleach for cleaning. People are using bleach for washing clothes and all of that. So try and look at that. I'm sure there are people who want you to sell bleach to them. Look at that and tell me what you think in a couple of months. whether you're able to make it happen or not. But if you need any help in terms of trying to put it together or whatever, reach out, send us a text message or send an email, and we'll be glad to send you some free material to help you along on how to set up or manage a small venture that you're running. Our social messages, like we always do, we always talk about the issue of rape before we go, and we are still on that matter. We are still campaigning strongly against rape. We still talk to people on a day-to-day basis and try to tell them or sensitize them on using the hashtags that you see on the screen, which is no excuse, no to rape. Let's make it a consistent thing. Let us make sure we drive away this malaise that is killing people all over the world. It has nothing to do with Africa. It has nothing to do with Europe. It's a global issue. It's a global pandemic. Let's fight against it. Let's try and keep our people safe, male, female, children, and even the elderly. Everybody is vulnerable. Let us kick it out of the world. Let's make sure the word rape no longer exists in the dictionary. Let's make it stop. COVID-19 is still real. A lot of people, have started getting jabs, COVID-19 jabs and all that. I haven't been that lucky yet. I haven't gotten mine, but I'm still looking forward to it. I would implore you to please take the jabs so far you have access to it. It's becoming very important that you don't think of just yourself, but you think of your neighbors as well. You think of your community as well, and try to keep people safe by you being safe in the first place. We wish you a very, very glorious week ahead, and we'll see you again on Sunday at 8 p.m. On Scouts Order, like I said, we're not going to be late this time around. You have a great night, and we'll see you on Sunday next week. Good night.